I want to ask this because I love asking this question to podcast hosts, and it's very difficult, but it's fun for me to ask it.
Okay.
If you could interview two famous or historical figures on your podcast, dead or alive, who would they be? And briefly tell us why.
I'm going to say this. I'm going to say it especially because there's something within my being that's saying, don't say that, don't say that. I would love to interview J.K.
Rowling. Interesting.
I just recently, so background, I grew up in again, literalist, so therefore anti anything mystical. So I wasn't allowed to read or watch Harry Potter growing up. And I recently rewatched it. I mean, I watched it eventually when I became an adult, and then I recently rewatched it and actually paid attention to it when I rewatched it. And I was like, this is one of the most incredible, obviously, like things I've ever seen. So I want to ask her about that, but I also want to ask her about her particular, like, I don't want to say stance, because I think that is kind of reductive. I want to ask her about her relationship to the trans community and trans issues, especially because I'm like beginning to study again these concepts of the masculine and the feminine and the Jungian take on it. So I would love to just dive into that, because I read also somewhere that she's a huge fan of Carl Jung. So all the juiciness of that, I would love to get into that with her. So that's one person. And then another person, well, you said dead or alive. So if he was still alive, I would definitely like want to interview Albert Murray, because he was cool. He was a cool cat. Like he was like, blues and jazz critic. His mind was like insanely out of this world. He could go from talking to you about jazz to talk to you about like, I don't know, like postmodernism or something. He was really cool. I've read one of his books, and I've also like seen other people who actually knew him talk about like the impression that he made on them. So I would love to. He also had this like resiliency about him, and he was very much in touch with reality. I'd say in terms of that nuance, he talked about how this idea of it don't mean a thing if it ain't got that swing was not just a song. It was a symbolic representation of how to approach life. I mean, think about swinging between, I think he said, the vicissitudes of life, whether you're experiencing joy, whether you're experiencing suffering, right? Well, the thing is, there can be no joy without pain. There can be no good without bad. There can be no suffering without wholeness. These things are bounded together. And so if you can adopt that mentality of learning to swing between the ups and downs of life, if you can't do that, then it won't mean anything. There will be no meaning, right? So that song is very profound, and he like elucidates that in one of his books. So yeah, I would interview him.
Dang. Those are great choices, and I never had that profound knowing of that song, and now I do.
Me either.
Yeah, like this is what Chloe was saying. This is deep. Mine change all the time. Like I've said, like from Whitney Houston to James Baldwin to Dr. King to Rihanna. I'm going to say what I feel right now. Two people I want to interview right now on my podcast on YouTube would be Will Smith and Chris Rock. I would want that exclusive. I want that exclusive. I want to and put it
speak it into existence.
Yes, I want that. And like it could be like 2-3 hours. I don't know, but as long as they need, I want to be there. I want that. But yes, I digress on that. So my last question for you, because a lot of people look up to you to gain nuance, and I know a lot of people are going to love this essay when they read it. If there was like a nuanced cake that needed 3 key ingredients for it to be a true nuanced cake to be served to the public that would actually help us, what are those 3 things you think we need? Is it like empathy? Is it like what 3 things do you think it would take?
Well, I would say definitely vulnerability, which is a capacity to relate to the unknown. If I were to give it a definition. Vulnerability. Empathy, which in its deepest sense actually means the capacity to suffer with someone else, because empathy comes from the word pathos, which denotes suffering specifically, not just like, any feeling in the world. So vulnerability, empathy, and then the third one would be unclinging. So a lot, like, you don't mean a thing if you ain't got that swing, requires capacity to refrain from clinging to any sort of like experience that you have and trying to grasp it and control it and make it last forever. Right? Because again, if there's no pain without joy, if you really couldn't experience joy unless you knew what pain was, right, then you would have to be able to let go of joy in order to really feel pain when you are experiencing pain. So yeah, a willingness to uncling and to swing is the third ingredient.
Basically that song. Everyone needs to listen to this song, and that will, while you're making the cake, listen to thank you, Chloe. This has been so much fun talking to you and getting to know more about you and your theory and your practices and this essay. For everyone, if you have not read Her Piece, there will be a link to it below. Be sure to share. Also, if you want to follow her work, more information about that will be on the Yellow Seeds publication. I am Brittany King. Thank you for tuning into Yellow Seeds. Thank you for watching. And everyone, give Chloe a round of applause. Yes. I want to have some effect there, so it's not going to be awesome. But thank you, everyone, for tuning in. Thank you. Thank you, Chloe.
Thank you.